Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into complex topics, sift through the information, and surface with the most fascinating insights. Today, we're embarking on a truly epic journey, one that spans millennia and touches on humanity's enduring fascination with the unknown above us. Unidentified flying objects, or UFOs?
It's a subject, well, steeped in mystery, isn't it? But our mission today is to cut through some of the speculation. We've got a wealth of sources, articles, research papers, historical accounts, giving us a really comprehensive list of reported sightings. Our goal is to unpack these notable instances of aerial phenomena, from the whispers of antiquity right up to the present day. We'll explore what people saw, how they interpreted it, and crucially, what patterns, commonalities, and maybe surprising facts emerge from this vast historical tapestry.
So what does this deep dive mean for you? You might be familiar with some of the more famous modern cases, like Roswell maybe, but we're going to pull back the curtain on just how far back these reports actually go, how surprisingly often they occur, and how deeply our own cultures and technologies have shaped their interpretation. Get ready for some genuine aha moments and maybe a whole new perspective on what's been seen in our skies. Before we really launch into the history, let's just nail down our terms. UFO and the more recent UAP get used, sometimes interchangeably, it feels like. But our sources highlight some important distinctions. What exactly are we dealing with when we talk about these phenomena?
That's a really critical starting point. According to our sources, a UFO, or unidentified flying object, is simply any observed aerial phenomenon that cannot be immediately identified or explained. The key word there is unidentified at the time of observation. The vast majority of these cases, upon subsequent investigation, they're actually identified as known objects like balloons or conventional aircraft or natural atmospheric phenomena. Only a very small percentage remain genuinely unexplained after thorough review.
Okay.
The newer term, UAP, or unidentified anomalous phenomena, is intentionally broader. It's used by official bodies to encompass unexplained observations in the air, sea, or space, specifically to avoid, the cultural baggage, conspiracy theory associations that have built up around UFO.
Ah, I see.
It allows for a more neutral scientific approach to truly anomalous events.
That distinction makes perfect sense, pushing past the old flying saucer stereotype. And speaking of pervasive, it seems these sightings aren't just isolated incidents, are they? They seem surprisingly frequent.
Exactly. What's truly fascinating here is that despite how extraordinary these sightings might seem, they're actually quite common, stretching across time and cultures, which really raises an important question. What does that tell us about human perception and the enduring mysteries in our skies? For example, during that initial wave of sightings in the United States in 1947, over 800 reports made the news. That's a significant volume.
800. Wow.
Yeah. And the British Ministry of Defense still receives hundreds of reports each year. And in Brazil, pilots alone report dozens of annual sightings. This isn't a rare occurrence at all. It's a persistent thread throughout human history.
Okay, let's unpack this. From the earliest written records of ancient Egypt to like the bustling streets of Rome, people were seeing things in the sky that utterly defied explanation, and they interpreted them through their own cultural lens. It's absolutely not just a modern phenomenon. Our sources give us this incredible account from around 1450 BC in ancient Egypt, the Tule Papyrus. It describes a star came to the south, it shot at the enemy. None could stand flames being behind them, and fire was in front of them.
Yeah,
That sounds like quite the celestial drama.
it certainly does. And as we move to ancient Rome, the sky continued to be a canvas for unusual and often unsettling events. Imagine standing in 218 BC and witnessing ships in the sky, a phantom navy shining ominously.
Ships in the sky.
Just a year later, in 217 BC, round parmas, or shields, were reported in the sky over Arpi. Then in 76 BC, a spark from a falling star was observed to grow to the size of the moon, ascend, and transform into a torch.
A torch.
Yeah. And in 73 BC, perhaps most evocatively, flame-like wine jars were seen falling between Roman armies.
Wine jars. Okay, it makes you wonder if ancient Roman chroniclers had maybe a more vivid imagination or if they just really liked their wine.
Well, who knows?
But what's striking about these Roman accounts is their sheer diversity, from phantom navies to literal wine jars. It really highlights how desperate people were to make sense of what they saw. And it wasn't just individual objects either, was it?
Correct. In AD 65, the Romano-Jewish historian Flavius Josephus reported seeing chariots hurtling through the clouds before the First Jewish-Roman War, a truly ominous sign for the times.
Chariots in the clouds.
And in AD 196, an odd phenomenon known as angel hair was reported. A fine rain resembling silver descended on the Forum of Augustus, coating bronze coins. Curiously, this silvery coating disappeared after only 4 days.
Ah,
These accounts really underscore how people in antiquity struggled to describe what they saw with the vocabulary and cultural context available to them, often attributing them to divine omens or, supernatural occurrences.
as we leave the world of classical empires and stride into the early modern era, we see these reports continue, but with a fascinating shift. People are grappling with the unknown, often through the lens of emerging scientific understanding or, well, still religious fervor sometimes. Take the 8th century, around 740 AD in Ireland, where the Annals of Ulster reported ships with their crews were seen in the air over Clonmacnoise.
Right?
It's almost eerily similar to later airship sightings, isn't it?
Yes, and the 16th and 17th centuries brought some truly fantastical yet widely documented descriptions. In 1561, over Nuremberg, there was a celestial phenomena described as an aerial battle involving hundreds of spheres, cylinders, and other odd-shaped objects, followed by a black spear.
An aerial battle.
Just 5 years later, in 1566, over Basel, numerous spherical objects were reported appearing out of the sun. Then, from Hoseankria in 1609, during the Guahagan period, witnesses described a halo or washbowl that was divided in two in the sky. What's striking is the attempt to describe these abstract phenomena with concrete, familiar objects in their daily lives, like a washbowl.
The 19th century marks another intriguing shift, with new technology like photography entering the picture, allowing for different types of documentation. In 1883, Mexican astronomer José Bonilla actually photographed hundreds of dark objects crossing the sun while observing sunspot activity. That gives us some of the earliest photographic evidence of unexplained aerial phenomena.
That's a key moment.
But perhaps the most widespread accounts from this era were the mystery airships of 1896-1897 in the United States. Newspapers across California and the Midwest printed reports of strange airships and lights, often described as cigar-shaped with bright lights and metallic hulls, almost foreshadowing, the popular image of futuristic craft.
Definitely. And this period also gave us one of the earliest famous hoaxes, or at least deeply embedded legends, in the form of the 1897 Aurora, Texas UFO incident. A local correspondent claimed an airship piloted by an alien crashed, and the pilot was buried in the local cemetery.
Curiously, buried there.
Well, that was the story. It demonstrates how early on interpretations of these phenomena could lean into the fantastical or even become folklore, shaping local identities. It's generally seen as a local legend, not taken seriously by residents now.
Right. Now we enter the 20th century, which truly ignites what we think of as the flying saucer era, and, significantly, the beginning of serious official government interest. Starting with the first half of the century, in 1904, the USS Supply in the North Pacific reported 3 bright red objects observed in a geometrical formation in line and echelon that changed course and accelerated upwards. This is a highly credible observation from trained military personnel decades before the term UFO even existed.
A very early, precise observation from a military vessel. Then, in 1917, we have the famous Miracle of the Sun in Fatima, Portugal, where thousands claimed to see bizarre solar activity. While interpreted religiously by many at the time, some later viewed it as a mass UFO sighting, though interestingly, no unusual photos were captured despite many photographers being present.
That's odd.
And during World War II, we heard about Foo Fighters, these colorful balls of light reported by Allied fighter pilots that would follow their aircraft at high speeds. These weren't just vague lights. They were described as intelligent, evasive, and seemed to interact with the aircraft.
And in 1942, the Battle of Los Angeles, U.S. radar picked up an unidentified aerial object, anti-aircraft artillery fired thousands of rounds,
Yeah.
and the LA Times reported the air over Los Angeles erupted like a volcano. It sounds like utter chaos, a city at war with something unseen.
It really does.
Fast forward to 1945, there's the Trinity UFO case in New Mexico. Conflicting accounts emerged much later, in 2003, about an avocado-shaped craft with insectoid aliens crashing near the site of the first atomic bomb detonation.
Right, that's a controversial one.
The fact that this specific case was cited in the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2023 really highlights its persistent intrigue and official attention.
That's right. The immediate post-war period also saw the ghost rockets of 1946 across Scandinavia and Europe.
Yeah.
Thousands of UFO sightings led to investigations by the Swedish and Greek governments, driven by concerns about experimental German technology maybe left over from the war. This shows how quickly national security concerns could become intertwined with unexplained aerial phenomena. Then, in 1947, private pilot Kenneth Arnold's sighting in Washington introduced the term flying saucers
Hmm.
when he described reflective craft moving at high speeds like mirrors. That single phrase absolutely exploded into public consciousness and defined the era.
And that phrase really blew the doors open for the famous Roswell incident in New Mexico, also in 1947. Initially, a press release announced the capture of a flying saucer, only for it to be retracted hours later, identified as a weather balloon.
The classic story.
Decades later, a military officer claimed it was a cover story, though in 1994, the Air Force officially attributed it to Project Mogul, a secret high-altitude balloon project. What's fascinating here is how quickly a single event can embed itself in public lore, even when official explanations are provided.
Absolutely. And this era also saw some truly foundational fabricated accounts, like the 1947 Maury Island hoax. That one included details like donut-shaped objects and mysterious men in black, the first mention, really.
Men in Black started there.
Seems like it. And the 1949 Aztec, New Mexico UFO hoax, where conmen sold magnetic oil-detecting machines based on a story of replicated alien technology from a crashed spaceship. These early hoaxes weren't just isolated pranks. They actively seeded critical tropes and figures like Men in Black, shaping decades of public imagination and skepticism, even for genuine unexplained cases.
That's a powerful point about the origins of some popular UFO tropes. Not all reports were hoaxes, though. In 1948, Captain Thomas Mantell died pursuing an object over Kentucky, which was later identified as likely a skyhook weather balloon, a tragic misidentification.
Very tragic.
However, the 1948 Gorman dogfight in North Dakota, where a U.S. Air Force pilot pursued a UFO for 27 minutes, was one of the cases that actually shifted the Air Force's attitude, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It led directly to the creation of Project Blue Book, their first serious systematic investigation into these phenomena.
Moving into the 1950s and 60s, the flying saucer image was firmly cemented in global culture.
Oh, definitely. In 1950, the McMinnville UFO photographs from Oregon were the first widely published photos of a flying saucer after the term was coined, really put a face to the phenomenon.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Then in 1952, the Washington, D.C. UFO incident involved a series of sightings with radar contacts. A critical detail here.
Radar, too.
Yes, visual and radar, and these were the first to be widely and seriously reported as potentially physical craft. The combination of visual and radar evidence pushed the CIA to form the Robertson Panel, which advised Project Blue Book to strip the unidentified flying objects of the special status they have been given, clearly indicating concern about public panic.
It seems like that recommendation didn't entirely stick, given the ongoing fascination. The 1950s also gave us some truly bizarre encounters that leaned into horror and folklore. In 1952, West Virginia had the Flatwoods Monster, where witnesses described a tall figure with claws and a head resembling the ace of spades, accompanied by a foul odor.
Yeah, creepy stuff. Sounds like something out of a pulp sci-fi novel.
Totally. And in 1954, a football game in Italy was interrupted when cigar-shaped UFOs stopped over the Fiorentina Stadium, witnessed by 10,000 spectators.
A truly public collective sighting. Imagine that.
Then the 1955 Kelly Hopkinsville encounter in Kentucky involved 11 people witnessing creatures described as goblins or little green men at a farmhouse.
Right, this case helped popularize the idea of alien grays, those little green men stereotypes.
Ah, okay.
Then in 1957, astronaut Gordon Cooper, a highly credible observer, witnessed a wingless craft with retractable legs silently land and take off at Edwards Air Force Base in California. He later believed the government covered it up.
An astronaut saw this.
Yes, Gordon Cooper. Also in 1957 in Brazil, law student Antonio Vilas Boas described being abducted by humanoid aliens and being compelled to have sex aboard their egg-shaped craft, introducing early themes of physical interaction.
Wow, those stories definitely add a new layer of psychological impact to these sightings.
You really do.
And the 1961 Betty and Barney Hill abduction in New Hampshire became widely spread in English-language publications as the first major alien abduction experience. It included reports of medical tests by small humanoid beings, a deeply influential account that spawned a whole new subgenre of UFO lore.
Absolutely iconic case. Then there's the 1964 Lonnie Zamora incident in New Mexico, where a police officer investigated a roaring sound and found a craft that took off, leaving unexplained ground impressions.
Physical evidence.
Exactly. Even if temporary, it really changes the dynamic.
The mid-60s were certainly busy. In 1965, the Valençol UFO incident in France had farmer Maurice Massé witnessing a spherical vehicle and child-sized, pale, large-headed beings who paralyzed him.
And he reported that he was never again able to grow healthy plants in the landing area, highlighting acclaimed environmental impact. And the 1965 Kecksburg UFO incident in Pennsylvania involved reports of a fireball and an acorn-shaped object in the woods. The military closed off the area, though they reported no evidence of a crash. Today, it's still commemorated with an annual UFO celebration, demonstrating how these events can become enshrined in local history.
I find it fascinating how some of these evolve into local lore or annual events, blurring the lines between fact and community narrative. But sometimes there were far more prosaic explanations, which is key to understanding the investigative journey. In 1966, the Michigan swamp gas UFO reports involved two mass sightings that authorities swiftly dismissed as, well, marsh gas.
Right, a classic example of a natural phenomenon being misidentified.
And in 1967, a British flying saucer hoax was exposed when apprentices constructed fake saucers out of fiberglass, and X-ray tests revealed Eveready brand batteries inside.
Batteries. A clear example of deliberate fabrication.
Indeed. We also have reports from prominent figures like the 1969 Jimmy Carter UFO incident in Georgia. While governor, the future president filed a report of a luminous, not solid light.
Yes, even presidents see things. The 1973 Pascagoula abduction in Mississippi described two men reporting being paralyzed and taken by humanoids with robotic slit mouths and crab-like pincers. The types of encounters reported became increasingly diverse and unsettling, moving beyond just visual sightings to intense personal experiences.
The last quarter of the 20th century saw some really intense and famous cases, often deeply impacting individuals. In 1975, logger Travis Walton disappeared for days in Arizona and claimed abduction by nearly human creatures. That later became the basis for a best-selling book and film, right?
That's the one, a very well-known and controversial case. In 1976, there was the Tehran UFO incident in Iran, a radar and visual sighting over the capital where two Imperial Iranian Air Force F-4 jets reportedly lost instrumentation and communications approaching the object.
The jets were affected.
That's what was reported. The fact that advanced military aircraft were affected like this is a significant detail. The following year, in 1977, the Petrozavodsk phenomenon in the Soviet Union and Baltic Sea saw a giant glowing jellyfish of light. This was later attributed by Soviet astrophysicists to the secret launch of the Cosmos 955 spy satellite, with sunlight causing the glow.
Ah, so that one got explained.
Yes, a classic example of an unexplained becoming explained once more information is available.
That's a textbook case of how initial mystery gives way to mundane reality sometimes. But in 1978, the Valentich disappearance in Australia remains a haunting mystery. Pilot Frederick Valentich reported a strange craft hovering on top of me again. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft before disappearing.
And neither he nor his plane were ever found, just vanished.
Leaves a profound void.
And in 1980, the Arequipa UFO incident in Peru is striking. Fighter pilot Oscar Santa Maria Huertas pursued an object in restricted airspace, fired 30-millimeter shells into it.
He shot at it.
Yes, but it seemed undamaged and rose rapidly. He described it as an incandescent light bulb with a much wider circular silver base, with no wings, propulsion jets, exhausts, windows, antenna. A truly perplexing object from a trained combat pilot.
Wow.
Also in 1980, the Rendlesham Forest incident in the UK involved U.S. Air Force personnel reporting lights in the sky, a metallic triangular object in the forest, and higher levels of radiation at U.S. air bases. Another case with multiple forms of reported evidence.
Then, in 1983, the Hudson Valley sightings in the United States involved widespread reports of a massive object, a city of lights, hanging silently. This was later determined to be a group of pilots flying small aircraft in formation.
An impressive and well-coordinated illusion, it turns out. This case highlights how intentional human acts can create widespread, baffling sightings.
Indeed. But then we have the 1986 Night of the UFOs in Brazil, with radar and visual contacts with multiple bright, colorful objects.
Fighter jets were scrambled but failed to intercept, and pilots described objects capable of impossible maneuvers and accelerating to Mach 15.
Mach 15. That's incredible.
A high-stakes, multi-witness event from a military perspective. The same year, the Japan Airlines Cargo Flight 1628 incident in Alaska saw the flight crew witnessing several unidentified objects described as rectangular arrays of glowing nozzles or thrusters. Another very specific and detailed account from experienced aviators.
That's quite specific,
Yep.
but sometimes what seems specific turns out to be a deliberate act and a major hoax. The 1987 Gulf Breeze UFO incident in Florida saw contractor Ed Walters take photos, but after he moved, a model resembling the craft was found hidden in the attic.
Right.
And newspaper photographers could nearly duplicate Walters' photos with it, exposing it as a hoax. This was a significant blow to UFO credibility at the time, demonstrating the power of fake evidence.
Another example of a clear fabrication that impacted public perception. In 1989, the Voronezh UFO incident in the Soviet Union had state news agency TANEZ reporting a banana-shaped object, a three-eyed creature about 9 feet tall,
A three-eyed giant.
and common hematite being described as rocks that cannot be found on Earth, which, of course, wasn't true. This shows how Cold War narratives could intertwine with fantastical claims.
Okay.
And in 1994, the aerial school UFO incident in Zimbabwe had over 60 students reporting seeing a silvercraft land with occupants dressed in all black. A mass children sighting that still perplexes many.
Finally, for the 20th century, the 1997 Phoenix lights saw many residents photographing lights in a V pattern.
Very famous case.
What makes this so interesting is that it occurred during a night the Air National Guard was conducting training exercises, a crucial detail that offers a potential, though debated, explanation for at least some of the lights.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how the terminology has evolved from flying saucer to UAP to avoid those cultural associations. But the reports of unexplained phenomena in the sky have an incredibly long, detailed, and often perplexing history.
Indeed. And now, as we step into the 21st century, the context shifts again with more advanced technology, more pervasive cameras in every pocket, and significantly greater official acknowledgement of unexplained aerial phenomena. In 2004, the Mexican Air Force pilots filmed lights over Campeche, later identified as massive burn-off flares from offshore oil platforms.
Right. Again, initial mystery, eventually explained.
But then also in 2004, we have the widely discussed USS Nimitz UFO incident off the coast of California. Navy pilots were directed to intercept objects, reported visual encounters, and crucially, recorded infrared video.
Yes, the Tic Tac video.
The significance here isn't just a visual sighting, but multiple data points radar tracking, visual confirmation from highly trained observers, and infrared video showing an object with no apparent means of propulsion, performing maneuvers far beyond known human technology.
That combination is what truly elevated these recent military encounters beyond simple misidentifications, compelling official investigation.
In 2006, the O'Hare International Airport UFO sighting in Illinois had United Airlines employees and pilots reporting a saucer-shaped, unlit craft hovering over a terminal before a rapid vertical rise, a prominent incident at a major airport.
Right over a busy terminal.
And hoaxes, of course, continue. The 2009 Morristown UFO hoax in New Jersey, where 5 red lights in the sky were seen, was later revealed by 2 men as a social experiment hoax.
A deliberate attempt to manipulate public perception. And some widely reported events had very clear, albeit dramatic, explanations. The 2009 Norwegian spiral anomaly was produced by a failed Russian missile test, creating a massive spiral light in the sky, a stunning visual that perfectly mimics something unworldly.
Looked amazing, but just a missile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, the 2014 USS Theodore Roosevelt UFO incidents off the east coast of the U.S. saw Navy pilots noticing unexplained objects on radar, with some capturing video footage. This led to new official guidelines regarding unexplained aerial phenomena sightings, demonstrating an ongoing serious effort by the military to address these events, not just dismiss them.
Then we have some more recent intriguing reports that speak to our modern technological landscape. Around 2020 in Los Angeles, there were reports of something hovering that looked eerily like a man wearing a jetpack.
The Jetpack Man.
Yeah. This was investigated by the FBI and FAA, who concluded it was unlikely to be a person, more likely a balloon, or maybe a dummy attached to a drone, a contemporary misidentification of emerging tech.
Makes sense.
And just last year, 2023, saw a list of high-altitude object events where multiple airborne objects were shot down by military aircraft, many identified as meteorology or espionage balloons.
Right, the balloon saga.
This highlights the constant challenge of distinguishing genuinely anomalous aerial phenomena from the increasingly sophisticated yet often secretive capabilities of conventional human technology.
This trend continues right up to the present. In 2024, there were reports of unauthorized drones near U.S. Air Force bases in the United Kingdom, raising security concerns, and thousands of sightings of lights, generally referred to as drones, over the northeastern U.S., for which the U.S. Air Force denied responsibility. These recent events highlight how easily new technologies can be mistaken for something more unusual, even as official channels acknowledge the persistence of genuinely unexplained phenomena. The continuous evolution of our own technology adds new layers to what can be misidentified, even as it provides new tools for investigation.
Here's where it gets really interesting, the part that ties all these threads together. It's not just the objects themselves, but how our cultural and technological expectations fundamentally shape how we interpret them, whether it's sky shields in ancient Rome, flame-like wine jars, or jetpack men today. Looking at all these reports, what are some of the recurrent themes and common shapes people describe, and what does this historical context tell us about how we explain the unexplained?
Well, the sources reveal a fascinating variety of reported shapes, but some clear patterns do emerge across millennia. Lights remain by far the most common description, often followed by unknown or unspecified. Simple lights. Beyond that, people report everything from cubes, cones, and teardrops to V patterns, ovals, egg-shaped objects, and, yeah, those wine jars from ancient Rome or banana-shaped objects in the 1980 Soviet Union. This incredible diversity often suggests the eye of the beholder is a significant factor, framing what's seen through familiar cultural reference points.
Makes sense.
When it comes to explanations, our sources consistently point to two broad categories that emerge from investigation. Known objects like weather balloons, flares, military aircraft, natural phenomena such as meteors or marsh gas,
Right.
and deliberate hoaxes, as we've discussed, which have profoundly shaped public perception and the very tropes of UFO lore. What's critical to remember is that these were initially unidentified. It's the subsequent investigation, sometimes decades later, that brings clarity, highlighting the difference between a truly anomalous event and a misidentified known object that just needed further analysis.
This raises an important question then. How do these historical accounts, even those later explained, inform our understanding of unexplained phenomena in the modern era? What patterns do you see emerge beyond just the shapes?
I think it's clear that humanity has always gazed skyward with wonder and confusion when encountering things beyond immediate recognition. The core pattern is simply the human response to the unexplained. We try to categorize it, fit it into our worldview, or attribute it to known or sometimes unknown causes.
Hmm.
The consistent frequency of these sightings across vastly different technological and cultural eras is perhaps the most compelling pattern. It forces us to ask, is it purely misperception, or is there a persistent yet elusive phenomenon? The shift from divine chariots to alien spacecraft reflects our evolving understanding of the universe and our place within it, but the fundamental impulse to make sense of the anomalous remains constant. Each explanation, in its own way, refines our understanding of what remains truly anomalous versus what can be attributed to earthly causes.
We've certainly journeyed through millennia of human observation, haven't we? From ancient chroniclers struggling with sky shields to modern-day pilots capturing infrared video of unexplained phenomena. It's a rich tapestry of history, mystery, and our ongoing human quest to understand the world around us.
Yeah, and while many reported UFOs are eventually identified, and some are revealed as clever hoaxes that reshape our collective imagination, the persistent thread of truly unexplained aerial phenomena remains. What's clear is that the sky has always been a canvas for both our fears and our fascinations, and the act of looking up and wondering is a deeply ingrained part of the human experience.
So what does this all mean for you? Next time you look up at the night sky, you might just find yourself thinking about the long, strange, and endlessly fascinating history of things seen in the heavens. And perhaps what else is out there, waiting to be identified. The search for knowledge, it turns out, is as old as our gaze toward the stars.